What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be diving into the rev rate discussion a little bit deeper, and more specifically looking at the yo-yo technique. We're going to dissect the parts of the yo-yo technique to try to make it a little bit easier for those of you who might be struggling with that and help better understand why that technique works so well. Before we dive into that, please make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and if you could, hit the like button. That like button tells the algorithm to put our video in front of more people, and that really helps the channel out, so we greatly appreciate it. With that said, let's dive into it.
How'd you get to be so cool?
Okay, so as we talk about the yo-yo technique, what we're really talking about, and I've talked about this in prior videos, talking about going from a cupped position to an uncupped position and back to a cupped position to try to generate more speed on that ball as it is rotating. Now the concept behind it, the concept behind having a cupped wrist is that you're getting your hand further underneath the ball. This is the reason why people who don't use their thumb or two-handed bowlers do so well with their rev rate, is because they are automatically getting their hand further around that ball, and it allows them, as they come through, to really rip through and get a lot more revolutions on the ball. Whereas for one-handed bowlers, if you don't cup your wrist and you're starting more in this position or even breaking it back, you have a harder time getting revs. So it is important that you cup that wrist. However, if you keep it cupped the whole way, you're not really gaining the advantage of being able to start ripping through the ball. And as you want to rip that cover off the ball, uncupping it gets that ball started on its motion, and then your fingers, as you lift back up, is going to continue that rotation of that ball. So the idea behind the yo-yo technique is, if you think about a yo-yo, your wrist is cupped, and as you throw the yo-yo down, you're going to come and extend your elbow, go from a bent elbow to extending the elbow, and then up, uncupping your wrist at the same time. That's going to throw the yo-yo down. Once it hits the bottom, to bring it back up, you're going to bring everything back up, including your wrist again. That brings the yo-yo back up. The idea in bowling with that is, I'm throwing a 9-pound ball here so that I can control it a little bit better for the sake of this example. But what you're going for is, again, if you've got a bent elbow, bent wrist, and I were to come down and straighten it all, just like with a yo-yo, I'm beginning to rotate that ball. And as it comes off my thumb, this is where I want to bring the yo-yo back up. And so my fingers coming back up again is going to get that ball going even faster. So the idea is that as you go down and rip back up, you're going to see that ball rotate a lot. And the first time I ever saw this example was with an online coach who he was using this lighter ball and showing this example and spinning it at his feet. This is a good way to practice, by using a light ball, practice that feeling of going from this cup position, extending everything, and then lifting back up again, and getting that ball to spin right at your feet. Why do some people struggle with the yo-yo technique? Well, there's a lot of different reasons that may be. One of them is the fact that a yo-yo, in this particular practice, is all in front of you. Once you actually bring your swing into play, it kind of throws everything off a little bit, and people struggle how they can kind of get that same kind of motion. So what I suggest that we do is we actually break it down. One of the things to think about with the bowling, with the yo-yo technique, is it's a lot like golf. For those of you that are golfers out there, when you golf, you begin with your arms pretty well straight, and you're going to start with a very elongated backswing. And as you get to the top, this is where your elbows and wrists are going to start to bend in. But then what they don't want you to do is to cast. If you cast, which is basically straightening everything back out too early and then coming straight through, you can hit the ball well, but you're not maximizing the speed of your club head. To maximize the speed, you're going to keep it very long, and as it bends, then you're going to keep everything bent. Your elbows, your wrist, everything is bent as you're coming in, and then at the very bottom of your swing here, you're straightening your elbows, you're straightening your wrist, all right here. That's what's going to give you that whip and create greater speed. It's the same concept with bowling. In bowling, as you swing back, typically you're going to push out and have a straight elbow. We don't want you to really have a bent elbow the whole way. So if you have a straight elbow and you come back again, you can have it straight. This is similar to casting, and you can do okay, but if you want to maximize the revs, you actually have to come here and keep the wrist bent and actually bend the elbow slightly. And as that elbow is bent, you're going to come in and you're going to keep it bent, and when you get to about here, this is where you want to straighten the elbow and straighten the wrist all at the same time. So you're maximizing that impact right at that release point. And so you want to think about the release broken into two pieces with that yo-yo technique. Number one is you're going to have a very bent wrist. You're going to come back straight and you're going to have a bent elbow. So everything is bent. Bent elbow, bent wrist. You're going to go from here to here. So this is elbow bent to elbow straight. Wrist bent to wrist straight. This is the first part of the yo-yo technique. It's not a long, rotating, rounded swing. It's actually almost like the ball is coming in a straight line as you're going from that bent elbow to the bent wrist. So a good way to practice to start is to grab a very light ball. Hopefully you can find a light ball that your hand fits in. I'm lucky enough that this 9-pound ball fits pretty well. And you want to practice just that first part. Don't worry about your push away in the first part of the swing. Don't worry about a follow through. Just worry about coming here bent, going from bent, straight, bent, straight. Elbow, wrist, going both bent, both straight. So this is the first part that we want to try to focus on. The second part of it is going to be that follow through. So on the follow through, now that you've got everything straight, as the ball's going to start to roll off your thumb, now you want to follow through. Now this is where a lot of people make the mistake is they will come here and when they follow through, they turn their wrist over. This is not what we're going for. If you think about coming down here, if I turn my hand over, I'm actually spinning the ball like a top, which is not what we want to create. We want to have more of this sort of angle of rotation of the ball, and the best way to do that is to keep your hand behind the ball, getting it cupped, and then coming through. As you come down and you are going from bent to straight on everything, your hand should be somewhat behind the ball. You're going to start to rotate, and as that ball comes off your thumb, you're actually going to stop the rotation. You want to keep going. The best thing you can do is actually coming back. Having your hand come back almost like you're going to smack yourself in the face. So we want to go from bent to straight to then up here. So the second part of that is going to be simply, once you've done this, the second part of it is about throwing the ball and coming up. And you can do this part practicing without the ball, getting that hand in front of your face. Now if we apply this to lane on that follow through portion, when you get to here and we come through, you can actually practice this at the line by coming here, and you don't even have to take a backswing. You want to practice pushing that ball out off your thumb first, finger second, but really focus on having your hand come in this way, not having your hand turn over. If you do that, you're able to do this. So now let's look at this from the back view. From the back side, what we want to see is we want to see that your hand is not coming over, but your hand is coming straight up. I'm not worried about where the ball goes in this case, or even how the ball is rotating. I just want to make sure I'm feeling my hand coming straight up behind the ball. So if we're here, my hand is here, okay? The ball's actually backing up in this particular case. Once you get the feeling of how it comes to have your hand coming straight up, now if I just throw the ball that way, obviously you saw the ball back up a little bit or it's going to roll end over end. We want the ball to actually rotate this way. You're still going to accomplish that, but what's going to happen is when you get to this point down here on that first part of that swing, your thumb is going to actually, when you uncup your wrist, your hand is actually going to be more on the side of the ball, not straight up behind it. So it's going to be here. So as you go from here, when that ball starts to come off your thumb, look at the direction that it's rotating. If you see that ball is rotating, now when I turn my fingers and lift straight up, I am just lifting hard on the ball this way. So that's going to look something like this. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to start back here. I'm going to start by uncupping the wrist and then following straight up through. So if we do this and then follow through, now you can see how that ball rotates and hooks all the way across the lane. So one way to help you with the visual of that is to actually put a piece of tape on your ball. Now if your fingers are here, you want that to be over on the side, somewhere around where your pap might be. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not looking for it to be spinning like it is your pap. We just want it something over here so that we can see that piece of tape rotating. And what we're going to see is if I'm spinning it coming across the top, you're going to see that piece of tape spinning on top of the ball as it goes down. We don't want to see it on top of the ball. What we want to see is as it's going down, instead of having the tape on top of the ball, we want that tape to be pointing at us a little bit this way, tilted. This is less tilt, This is more tilt. We want it somewhere in this range. And then we also don't want it to be completely beside the ball or straight up behind the ball. If I go straight up behind the ball, you can see the piece of tape is out here on the side. We don't want that either. If I'm rotating it, you can see the ball comes, that spot comes in a little bit, tilt a little bit. That's about where I want to see the piece of tape spinning down there. So let's just focus on the tape. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to go straight behind the ball and come straight up. And you're going to see as I go straight up, that piece of tape is going to be more out on the side of the ball. So if I'm here, the tape is all the way out onto the left side of the ball. If I change that up a little bit and I rotate my hand over, which is the mistake a lot of people have, what you're going to end up seeing is you're going to see that tape is going to be much more on the top of the ball. So if I'm here and I rotate, you can see now that piece of tape is spinning on the very top of the ball. So what we want to accomplish then is if we want to get that tape in that right position, coming straight up behind the ball, it gets it too much to the side, spinning it actually causes it to spin on the top. So what we want to do is, as we were learning through that yo-yo technique, is as you begin to straighten your wrist and your elbow and you come down, you're going to get that ball at more of a 45-degree angle, which is going to put the tape where you want it to be. And so as that happens, again, I don't want to rotate my hand around, but as I then rip my fingers back up, I should see that tape more where I expect it to be. So it's going to look something more like, okay? So as we put all that together, again, now go into an actual swing. I was at the line, we practiced going from the bent elbow, bent wrist down to here as step one. Step two, as it's coming off your thumb and rotating a little bit, then you're going to come up with your hand this way. So now let's put it all together, because we don't want to just do this and we don't want to just do that. If we put it all together, let's just do a single step. If we do a single step and you get that swing, don't worry about what your push away is. Get into this motion, but as soon as you get to here, I want to see a bent wrist and a slightly bent elbow, and then we're going to focus on this and then this all together in a single step. And that's more what we're looking for. So now the biggest challenge becomes, how do we do this on our heavier ball? Well, I'm going to put a piece of tape on the ball just like I did on that light ball. Now this is my normal ball. I'm using a dark ball just so y'all can see it. I have no idea what this lane condition is like. But now we want to do the same thing. Now this is a much heavier ball, so it's a lot harder to practice this. I can do it, bent wrist, bent elbow, do that, but it really feels like it's jerking my arm. And to actually just start from here, ripping up, it's a little bit heavier, a little bit harder to do. This is where the importance of the fit of the thumb comes into play. So if you go back and watch that video, the importance of getting a properly fitting thumb, that's going to help ensure that the ball feels lighter than what it really is. But once you've got that down and it feels comfortable, incorporate that into your own ball. So I'm going to do the same thing now with my own ball. You can see where that piece of tape was. That piece of tape was spinning in the correct position. Ended up turning over about 2/3 of the way down the lane, which is what you would expect. But in that first part, you saw the tape wasn't on top of the ball, tape wasn't beside the ball. It was toward me a little bit and tilted up a little bit. That tilt and angle of rotation is what's important for just getting the ball to rotate the correct direction. The yo-yo itself and actually getting that bent wrist going to straight to back again, that's what's going to help you increase those revs. So if I don't do all that, if I keep my wrist a little bit flatter, do everything else the same, and I come through here, I can still get the ball to rotate in the correct position. It's more of a stroker thing, so I'm going to keep my wrist a little bit flatter, okay? And I'm not going to worry about going from bent to straight. Everything's going to be pretty well straight. I can do that. And you can see the ball's still rotating with the correct tilt. That piece of tape is still in the correct position, but my revs were much, much lower. So getting the right position of your hand is important first so that you're getting the right rotation. This drill is really not meant for beginners. This drill for the yo-yo is meant for people that can do what I just did and now taking it a step further and increasing revs. If we do that again one more time with one step with the yo-yo in mind, okay, that's a lot more revs. I'm not EJ tacking. I'm not going to be throwing 500 revs, but this is a technique that helps take you from the lower 300s to the upper 300s in my case. So then, when you bring all of your steps into play, Once you bring in all of your steps, it does get a little bit challenging because now you're trying to focus on everything from your steps and your push away and everything else, which is why it's good to start with the stationary practice of doing this to this, doing that several times, getting used to that feeling, getting used to this feeling, throwing the ball, a light ball like this a few times, get used to how that feels. Do it with no steps, see how that feels, is the ball rotating correctly. Then moving into a one-step drill and doing that, and seeing how that feels. Can you still do the yo-yo? Can you still go from bent to straight and back up again and rotate it correctly? You could go back and incorporate then 2 steps, 3 steps, etc. back till it's comfortable. If you can do it at the line but you're struggling with your steps, just really try to blank your mind out. You know, empty your mind of everything else in your approach. Just go up there. This should all be muscle memory. And it's when you get to here, that's when you need to start thinking. So you get to here, now you need to think, okay, I'm gonna bend my elbow a little bit and come down. Two-handers, that's not a lot different because what they're doing, now they're gonna be bent pretty much the whole way. You don't see two-handers really straighten their arm very much. Some of them do a little bit, but for the most part, they're bent like this. So they're bent, but when they go to follow through, they're still going from here to this at the bottom. So they're still gonna straighten their elbow, straighten their wrist, because they're still trying to accomplish the exact same thing, which is getting it straight, letting that ball rotate off. Their thumb's it's not coming off their thumb, but as it comes off their palm, then they're gonna come through and then do the same thing. Now you might see some people with their hand over a little bit, but you don't wanna really turn it over like this. So with a two-handed bowler, it's the same drills. You're coming here, practicing this, okay? What does this look like? How does this feel? Okay, and then once you get to here, making sure your hand is somewhat at a 45-degree angle toward your pocket, coming through and ripping back up with your hand up this way. So you can do that, okay? Here, once you do that, and you can see where that piece of tape is on the ball. And then with that two-handed approach, then you can take a step back and incorporate one step into it, but you're still gonna go from bent to straight. Everything's gonna go straight, ripping through, but I'm gonna try to do it in a fluid motion. And then do the same thing with your own ball. With your own ball, I still have my thumb in this one obviously, but take my thumb out, bowl like a two-hander. Okay, so I'm gonna come back here, make sure I'm going from here to straight, a little bit of an angle, and then rip back up through the ball. So in the one step, I'm gonna come back here bent. That's what we're going for. All right, and then once you bring in all of your steps, something like that. So hopefully that helps you guys understand a little bit more about what the yo-yo technique is really about, how to break it down into a couple different moves and how to practice that. Again, this is really a drill that is meant for a little bit more of an advanced bowler, somebody who's already got good axis tilt and rotation. They just need to increase their revs some. If you're struggling with your axis tilt and your angular rotation, this drill might be too advanced, and we're going to go into looking at a different way of looking at throwing the ball in another video. But hopefully this helped you out. If you liked it, make sure you hit that thumbs up or that like button. Share it with other people, comment if you would, but most importantly hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.